There's something creepy going on around Long Hungry Creek Farm these days, and it's creeping out my perennial beds. It's the creeping weeds. So when we're doing the garden and digging the weeds, we have got to get every last root of the creeping weeds out, because they sprout and come back if you don't. We'll start with Johnson grass since it's the biggest. And it's one of my biggest problems here. So this is an old blueberry patch that I just couldn't keep the Johnson grass out of. And you'll see why I'm having such trouble with it when you see the size of these roots. They're amazing. I mean, it is an amazing plant here. Look at these roots here. So when we dig out Johnson grass roots, we have to get them all out. And it is a chore because they go in pretty deep. So we just have to keep digging until we get all of those roots out. And they're very prolific. They just a small little piece of a Johnson grass root. You know, if I break this off and it stays in the ground, that's a new plant. So you can see with these roots like this, how once they get into a perennial patch, they're really hard to get out. So we've got to keep them out from the get-go. That's why we like to plant perennials in land that has been worked up for a few years and cultivated, so we've gotten all of these pernicious perennial creeping grasses out. It comes out of the ground this time of year, oftentimes at an angle, and it looks a whole lot like corn. It's in the same family. But yeah, you can see where these grass roots get right in here with the blueberry roots and makes it hard to grow the blueberries because you got all these other grasses competing with them for moisture and nutrients and such. When I first moved to Tennessee, the old-timers warned me of something they called moody grass. And after a little while, it didn't take long, I realized they were talking about Bermuda grass. And Bermuda grass is an enemy of all of our perennial plants because of these little wiry roots. You see those things? And they will take over a perennial bed of berries or something like that. So we have to get in there and clean these things out. Now this one here, you can pretty much, if you just get them out on the surface, they'll dry out and die. But you just have to do it. You have to keep them on. And as soon as you turn your back, they're back in there again. So we just flip them over. And mainly we're working on these little wiry roots. You can see them right there. Yep. And again, just a small little thing like that will make another Bermuda grass plant. So we want to keep these out to start with. Once they get in our plants' roots, they're really hard to remove. And then gradually they'll be the ones that are getting your compost and the nutrients from your mulches and stuff. And your berries and other perennials will suffer. Bermuda grass and Johnson grass are actually wonderful cattle feed. So I encourage them in our pastures. So as a farmer, I love Bermuda grass and Johnson grass. But as a gardener, I really don't like them. Nutgrass is actually a pretty plant. It sends a stalk up that has a nice little flowering thing, looks sort of umbrella-like. But it's another one of these creeping weeds we have got to keep out of our perennial patches. Now, the real reason that there's nutgrass somewhere is because the subsoil is holding too much moisture. So they like wet spots. So we've been digging out some of the clay here on the lower side, hoping to get better drainage in here because we have a little bit of a nutgrass problem. So this time of year is a good time to look for these little things right here. And this is the nutgrass wanting to sprout up out of the ground, and it's got a little rhizome right there. And you see this wiry little root thing? Well, that's connected to the next one. So we have to go in there and loosen the soil and see where it's connected at, and follow those little threads. And look, there we keep finding more of these little things with their nodes on them, wanting to make new plants. So we want to get all of these out of here. We loosen the ground up. We try not to break them because we're trying to actually follow them. There we go. I can tell I got to the end of that one. Yeah. So no amount of pulling the tops off when they come up is going to help you. You have to get down there and get in there and dig out these little things. This all reminds me of the story of an old farmer on his deathbed. He told his 3 sort of lazy sons that there was a treasure buried in the orchard. Well, he died, and those 3 sons rushed up to that orchard and dug all through the orchard trying to find this treasure. Well, they didn't find anything, but the next year they had a treasure of apples. Whenever we see these kinds of creeping grasses and weeds, we know the ground is compacted and damp and needs to be dug. So it's the digging, besides just digging these out, the digging, we're adding air. We're aerating the soil, we're loosening up the subsoil, getting better drainage, and that's, in the long run, which will help keep these grasses out. Ground ivy looks innocent enough with its pretty little blue purple flowers here. It's really kind of a pretty little plant, but again, it's a low-growing creeper that will love to get in, invade your perennial beds. So we're going to have to dig them out, and you can see once I pull out a chunk of it, all of these roots there have to come out of the ground. This is another one we can just dig up, and the sun will dry it out and kill them off pretty good. But it just sends out these little runners, and it just creeps, and in a matter of weeks can travel several feet in from your grass and your lawn into your perennial beds. So anytime we see roots like this that develop with these little nodes on them, each one of those nodes has the ability to make more roots. So even if we leave that much, there's a whole new plant right there. We oftentimes smother these out by growing a quick growing, black-eyed peas or Sudan grass, or just something that's going to grow tall, lush, and quickly during the summer months. These are all summer growing plants. Bindweed is a pretty white flowered morning glory, but it's also pretty darn invasive. Usually I show you the pretty gardens on our farm. Now I'm going to show you a pretty bad one where we could not keep the bindweed out of this raspberry patch. And so we do have some raspberries in here, but I'm going to dig just a little bit and you'll see what I'm talking about. All of these roots like this right here are this perennial bindweed. And once it gets in there, it takes over. So this is what the leaves look like, that familiar heart-shaped morning glory leaf, and it's a vine, climbs up. But these roots last year after year and grow and they filled this bed up. This was you can tell it's good soil and everything, but I can't grow raspberries here anymore because of the bindweed. I'll probably have to somehow get all this cleaned out and grow annuals where I can just keep cultivating, or I may just turn my chickens loose in here and let them have it for a few years. And again, each one of these nodes has the capability of making a whole new plant. Look at the roots shooting out, each one of those. So these creep laterally, and then they send up these shoots. No amount of pulling these is going to get rid of your problem. You have to dig. I've heard that burning rhizomes or seeds of weeds and then sprinkling the ash back on the ground and repeating this for several years will make the ground not want to grow those weeds. Fire has a a detrimental effect on plant growth, sort of the opposite of water, which is, of course, really good for growing plants. That might be worth a try. Although I like the idea of the fruit plantation being in a lawn, it hasn't worked out that good for me because of these creeping, wiry grasses that I feel like I have to keep out of the perennial beds. So I keep digging, and if you dig gardening, you'll be digging in your garden. If you love gardening, you may want to subscribe to this channel. We showcase gardens, plants, and the joy that gardening can bring.